Hello, listeners. Hi, my name is Madhavi, and I'm so happy to have you on UppTalk. You have come to the right place if you want to learn about IT and do really cool things with your hands. We are not just another IT company when I say UppTalk. Think of us as your learning partner dedicated to helping you reach your full potential. We have top notch hands on courses to help you build your business, whether you're new to technology or want to move up in your current job. Let's look around this as our first step towards learning.
But now what happens is update attributes is something which is like, by default, it is there. Now, if you want attributes and hierarchy inherit attributes, you can go from there to other. But by default, what happens is update attributes as the change is checked. That whenever you face any situation like it was not there previously by mistake, but it is now there and I want to make some changes. What happens is you have this update entity attributes when they change option which lets you update your entity attributes if it was not there in the previous iteration previously. Previously, if it was not there now, it is there for you to update it, and you can very well go ahead and you can update the attributes in the places where you want the data to change. If it is scheduled, then nothing like it, because if it's a scheduled data whereby it went for a miss and then it has come once again updated. What do you need to do is you need to go ahead and do this. Update attributes. Attributes is checked. But if it is a past data, if it's a historical data that needs to change, what do you need to do is you can process last 90 days data. And if you want to go further as well, you can write to the Salesforce support team and they will go ahead and reprocess. We often do that. We reprocess the entire data stream from the start that we have it. We have this done and we can reprocess the entire data if there are changes. But if in the first instance the media by targeting type was not there, but in the next iteration it has come up, it always gets updated. But do remember one thing. What that is, media by attribute or any sort of any attribute to an entity is mapped at a one-to-one relationship, because at a certain point of time, one media by key can have one media name and it can be attributed to one attribute value at a single point of time. 1, 2, 3 and default by cannot have direct and indirect. Maybe targeting time at targeting type at a single point of time. At a single point of time, it is never possible for an entity to have two attribute values. It will only have one attribute value. If that gets updated, what happens is the data in media by targeting type field gets changed, but never does it get added. Because that's not how data runoff works. That's not how the entity relationships in a data model works. What happens is you check it. What happens is the hierarchy, which was log, it opens and it accommodates the direct type. But if with direct it comes with indirect, not direct, perfectly direct or anything. At a certain point of time, it is never possible and it will never get added because it is at a one-to-one relationship. This will help you to update the attributes for the existing entities and help update the new values. One more thing that happens is it will attribute values are never constant when you do this. And I always feel that you have to keep it checked, because once you check it, what happens is it will always be updated with newer values. And this is very important. because you must have working in this industry. You must have seen that our classification sheets, or what we consider a source of truth, those sheets keep on changing at fiscal year level, at financial year level, at monthly level, at quarterly level. You'll see that things keep changing, right? I feel update entity attributes is a blessing because at real time, whenever your fiscal year changes or whenever there is a new introduction of a sheet or new introduction of a new classification that you want to do for yourself, you always have update entity attributes. Whenever you have changed it, update entity attributes goes ahead and it basically updates the entire hierarchy of data, not only giving you the hierarchical data, but also helping you to always update it with the newer values as they come out. Now the example that I was talking about, that is basically shown in the slide that I see you right. At any given point of time, there can be only one value per attribute for a media by key. Tomorrow, if direct changes to geotargeting, it gets replaced with geotargeting and not added up. New targeting type will only be the one targeting type associated with the media by key, and old values get replaced. Now comes the same concept in terms of the data model. When we have the data model, think it as an Excel sheet. Media buy. Key is nothing but your placement. ID media buys your placement. Campaign key, creative key, create campaign key, site key, and creative key. All these things come as a part of an Excel. But think from the purview of Datorama, this guy gets a new Excel. What it does is it creates a new hierarchy and locks it. Because if it doesn't lock its hierarchy, what will happen is tomorrow, if a data comes in which has a different structure altogether, and if it allows that to override or if it to get appended along with, what will happen is your data will become inaccurate. It will become a mess and it will become cluttered, and everyone will say that it's an inaccurate tool. What happens with what it is called in Tableau? Tableau, what is often data blending, right? I always advise that don't use data blending in Tableau. If anyone is working in Tableau, we have no data blending, I'm sure. It is not a harmonization tool. Data blending works like fails miserably. Like I don't know with which batch. I have a Tableau session as well. If it is with this batch or any other batch, I'm not sure. But then there is a Tableau session as well planned when we will do Tableau. If any one of you are there, we will discuss then as well. But then, in Tableau, we have data blending. Data blending is done on basis of this shared entity and shared stuff itself. But it fails miserably because it doesn't have some kind of a data modeling. Tableau doesn't have a data modeling like it definitely has, or else it cannot show the rows and columns. But then it's not that high level, or it is that not that well thought when it comes to data blending and data model together, hand in hand. Data blending fails like, whenever we have a server level data or we have a huge data coming in, data blending fails miserably. But in Salesforce, they have worked. First thing is on data modeling, that once you ingest the data for that, a hierarchy is created and logged. Once it is logged, now you go forward with whatever you want to do. Use harmonization tools to override whatever is there. But by default, you cannot do anything, or by default, you cannot toggle with any kind of accuracy. It's the same thing like, when you have a data, you have put it in there. Just try to think it in this way. Let me also share when I say you ingest it. Just try to think of this dataset. This you have ingested. And you have told that the universe for the, I don't know, it is what, 3rd of June, or I don't know, 6th of March, whatever the data format is, forget it. For 3rd of June 2022. Now this is the hierarchy. This is the data that you need to keep in your repository, and you need to work towards it. What this guy does is this guy updates, uploads it, and this guy locks it. Then you throw a bomb at Datorama. You say that you know what? For June. For June's, the campaign name that I had given you was wrong. Previously, you have given him the campaign name as campaign A, B, C. And now you tell him that the campaign name is not A, B, C, but the campaign name is X, Y, Z. What will happen? This guy will be confused. Now it is if it is an attribute. Now think of it in this way. If it was an attribute of an entity, you can go ahead and you can check the update entity attributes. This was easy for him. But now you're telling him that my entity is only wrong or my entity is updated by some mistake. What happened is my AP, I was AP, I has failed to recognize the reports or recognize what was going in at the tool level or at the placement level at the publisher level. What was happening? My tool has failed to track it. My AP, I was failed to track it. API has failed miserably. But now, when I have updated the wrong data, now this has come up with the right data. Now what you do is, this guy asks you if it is an attribute that I need to update because I have it checked by default. But no, you tell him that. No, you need to go ahead and change the entire hierarchy of data, starting from changing the entities. Now he has logged this. And you tell him that campaign name A was not A, but it was AAL. What will happen in that scenario? However, sometimes you will need to change the hierarchy and correct an error in your report, which was uploaded. Not a report, but it's a API level failure maybe. ABC needs to be replaced by XYZ. Then comes one option called override dimension hierarchies, which you need to check. Once you check override dimension hierarchies along with update entities attributes, what happens is now it unlocks the data model from entity level. When you want to change the entity, you go and tell override dimension hierarchies, you check it. What happens is your entity level gets unlocked and your data model gets updated. Entity, then I say it comes over or you're not seeing my screen again. Later. There is something called more of them. There is something called override media by hierarchy. They have changed the name to media by hierarchy, but is basically override dimensions hierarchy as they change. Now what happens is, now my campaign levels gets updated from A, B, C to X, Y, Z. But now we need to keep in mind one very important thing. That is, when you check override dimension hierarchies, you need to keep this always in your mind, engrave it, write it off, put a sticky note, whatever you wish to do, write in your wall. that whenever I check override dimension hierarchies and I have updated, don't fail to uncheck it as well. And that's why you must have seen that override update entity attributes is always checked by default, but override dimension hierarchies is not checked by default. We need to check it when we need it. Till date, I have used it only once, but you may need to update things from your side. If at all it happens, it doesn't happen anytime. But it can happen in a million years, right? That something like this has happened, whereby you need to change the campaign name for a historical data. Why I'm telling is that you need to change a U once you have done it and refresh your data always. Uncheck the override dimension hierarchies button, because just think if someone at one point one day, like under the sun, he has brought a blank report with himself and he uploads it to the same data model and he has given an override dimension hierarchies. What happens? The entire hierarchy gets changed to a default. Campaign key becomes default, creative key becomes default, site key becomes default, media by key becomes default, because all the dimensional hierarchies entities are now changed to default when you override it with a blank report, right? Override dimension hierarchies. As soon as you have checked it, you should uncheck it or else. Or as doomsday waits for us. Let's say you have left the ODH option checked. You have left the right and one day Salman has got a blank report and he uploads it. What happens now? Everything becomes default campaign, default media by default site and default creative, and you have nothing left and it cannot be undone. And what happens is, by means of this, your entire data structure goes for a toss, because your one data's data model has completely changed into default. That does mean that your data was set up in a parent-child mode. Say suppose if it is a parent-child mode, then entire parent and child gets screwed. If it is set at a classification level or it at any level, you can think of it gets updated and it gets screwed big time. Once you have update, entity attributes is something which has to be always checked. You have no option. No data was updated himself and it has kept it updated all the time. But update entity attributes basically help you to update the entity's attributes at real time, and it's not a constant value. But whenever your attributes change, it basically changes, keeping aligned the factors, and it gets changed. And similarly with override dimension hierarchies, what happens is at entity level, whenever things get done, the entities get updated. The entities at entity level. Whenever we want to make changes, we can do it by using the override dimension hierarchies. It basically is changing the entire hierarchy of data for you. But as soon as you have recognized and you have done it, do uncheck it, or else whenever there is a new hierarchy or whenever there is a new set of data that comes in, your dimension hierarchies get shuffled. And that results in screwing up the entire connection that you have harmonized and automated. The entire automation goes for a toss and you're left with nothing, or you're left with some data which is a mess and cluttered altogether. Your default hierarchy is the only hierarchy and everything is gone. Parent-child use cases. What we do is what? Why do we use parent child for integrating measurements and integrating dimensions? If we have a data stream A and data stream B, we have seen all the aspects of parents child. I'm just taking it quickly from here because I've shown you all the types of parents child that can be done. Data stream is the hierarchy. Here's what they're telling is a hierarchy, but always keep in mind a full hierarchy and no hierarchy, or full hierarchy and a data set with less hierarchy. Maybe media by key site, key campaign key. Keep this as a note as well that whenever if someone asks you what is a data set with full hierarchy, it is a data set which contains media by site and campaign. You have data stream as hierarchy, and then data stream B has come up with an added measurement of conversion tag like total conversions. And it also has a conversion tag along with. You want to join your display data with conversions data. Now the first data that you see, it's basically a display data, and the second data that you see is a conversions data, and you want to join it. We will work on something called overarching entities the next week. That's what 2 or 3 topics are left. One is overarching entities. Overarching entities are very fabulous thing that they have given us, which we call as custom classifications. As we have custom attributes, which are basically help to classify the attributes. We have something called custom classifications, which we will do after data classification, which are called overarching entities, which basically help us connect both the data streams of different types. Over here as well, we want to join our display data with conversion data with a, but what over here it as we are, that is like a, what do you call it in, that is like a foreign key that we have a primary key and a foreign key, right? Custom classification acts as a foreign key in helping us join the data. But over here what we are doing is we are doing a full outer join based on a common app, common thing. My conversion text data and my display data needs to be added together by means of a media by key. And the goal is to slice total convergence data not only by data stream B but also by data streaming A as data stream as the full hierarchy. Right? We see that the parent right. Right? We see that the parent right. The parent right. Does it affect measurements? But it allows us to join several data sets of identical entities, and let's see how it happens. We need to achieve this by using data stream A as parent data and data stream B as we have the common keys of entity key. We need to achieve this. Data stream B needs to have data media by key, which basically is an entity key based on which the data sets will be merged. And thirdly, any measurement that we want to add in slice over there. We want to add conversions, right? Our main goal is what? Our main goal is to whatever dimensions the parent and child has, all these things need to be sliceable with the measurements that we have. We have to do that, and like campaign key should slice the total conversion. Media by key should basically the data set of while values. Media by key, site key and campaign key can slice the total conversions. That's what is shown in the boxes that my data stream it can slice it off. When this setup is implemented, total conversions can be sliced by data setting. Now taking another example whereby we have the media by key, we have date, we have clicks, impressions, media cost, and over there we have media by tactic and media by size. This example I was talking about, I guess the first day or second day with someone from here in the team that we have the media by keys. But now what we want is to have additional dimensions in my data that we can slice the measurements with those additional dimensions of tactic and media by size. Data set as your actual data alongside media by key, and then data set B has its additional dimensions, name, tactical size. You do a parent-child. If these two streams are kept separately, never can we slide the measurements. Definitely. Once we do it, what our intention is to have the media by name, tactic, and media by size slice are then size, our measurements, clicks, impressions, and media cost. Right? That gets done. We have seen how we do parent-child, and it is the old way, old slide of parent-child. Don't bother about it. Apply parent-child relationship, and always have told you the child is something where we need to edit and put the parent. Update entities attributes when they change has to be updated in order to open up the entity keys from data stream A and allowing data stream B to its existing media by. We need to check the update entity attributes when they change in data streaming. We have that. What happens is what we are doing is classification. Data streams needs to have the entity key in the data stream alongside its attributes. That's our goal. And oh, this is important as well, that our parent can be like, a data stream can be a parent of multiple child streams. When we say that multiple child, what it means. Wherever we see that, this is my parent data stream, which is applicable to multiple child streams. We can have the parent as a parent to be the child of multiple data streams. How? Let's talk of this. How? Let's say we have 3 data streams which we need to align. And what we do is we will do this as part of our reimmersion. From data stream A, we take the attributes. From data stream B, we take the dimensions. And from data stream 3, we take the dimensions even. And then we will create a single parent stream. And then if I do a parent child with like in a single parent and all these 3 children under it, what happens is data from like enough. Data from 1, 2 or 3 data streams can refer the single parent, and it can act as a classification for them that they can show the data accurately. We will do an example maybe when we are doing the immersion over here. We have the live implementation of parent-child. Anyways, like you can check that. Basically, this is a conversion tag and a display data setup. That's your campaign, key campaign, category placement, and placement size. It has the full hierarchy, whereas the other one has only campaign key, placement IDs, and total conversions. Total conversions need to be basically your display data, which has the full hierarchy, becomes a parent. And the child is one which doesn't have the full hierarchy. And what you do is, first is what they are doing is they are verifying the relationships between placement ID at campaign ID, placement ID and campaign center, placement size and campaign ID and campaign category. Why they are doing it? Because they want to make sure that ek one there. Alright, when I go into that program or play all my race, yet there's one that will be displayed. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@therightuptalk.com.